Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Matt Townsend Show. I'm your host, Matt Townsend, your relationship coach, your guide on the side. We do what we can every day on this show to help you and your loved ones grow healthy, happy relationships and to really try to figure your way through this crazy, muddy world we all are trying to live in. And today I think we've got a pretty exciting topic for you. We're going to be bringing in an expert in humans that you might not think would just naturally be an expert. Okay, we're bringing in a folk artist who just apparently gets around. And I mean that in the best way possible. He gets out. He's been in every country virtually. I don't know if it's every country, but he's been in almost every state. And he paints and does folk art of all these people in the different states. But he gets to meet thousands of people. He has millions of adoring fans. Eric Dowdle, he's also a host on the radio, on the BYU radio, so I'm sure you've heard him. He's on every evening on BYU radio, Monday through Friday, I believe. We're going to bring him on and pick his brain about humans, people, and how we're all so different, right? Many times have you been just going down the street in another state while you're traveling with your family and you're like, these people are so different from us? Have you ever thought that? Or have you actually ever got out and just gone to the store and talked to them and figured out, you know what, we really probably have a lot more in common than we do separating us? To me, a lot of times I think we are always out there trying to figure out how messed up everyone else is, when in reality, we are so close together. We all are a little messed up. We all have our own fears, our own concerns, and today on the show, we're going to be talking about it. We're going to find those things that we all have in common. We're going to go across the country and even maybe the world with Eric Dowdle and figure out what is it that makes us human and what is it that we all share. Now, Carl Jung once had a quote that said, "That which is most personal is most universal." So the things out there in the world that you feel most personally are the things that most unite us as humans. And today, that's what we're in the search of. We're in search of figuring out what are the keys to being human, what do we all share, and we're going to get a bird's eye view from an artist on what he sees. Now, before we do that, though, we have got to first critique the driving. We know it's true. I'm sure if you've ever been on a business vacation or any kind of vacation or a trip, and you're all over the country, you got to be questioning the driving of all these crazy people out there, right? One of the obvious defining attributes of a city is most often their driving habits, which we don't like to talk about and which are always present and driving you crazy. Let's go to Rob Sanders, who's got a piece on that.
Let's look at the rainbow. What's in there? Depression, insomnia, motor mouth, darting eyes, indecisiveness, decisiveness.
We'll come back to that. That was some dark force that we don't quite know what that was. They're going to figure that out. As I sit and work with people and couples, organizations, and I travel teaching kind of people how to deal with conflict and manage things, I found that in the end, there's so many things that we actually have in common. For example, I've had couples fighting, arguing over things that they thought for sure they were so off on, like the husband and the wife having a conversation, an argument they have fought about forever. And when I sit with them, I listen, and as I listen, I think they don't seem to actually disagree. It seems like we're actually in agreement here, but we're fighting about something. And as I turn to the couples and ask them to actually, do you agree with what they're saying? Like, for example, had a couple where the wife was so frustrated because she never gets help around the house, and the husband doesn't seem to care, and she feels like she's the only one working, and it's not fair. And as I'm sitting there and I turn to him, I call him by name. Let's say his name is Larry. Larry, do you agree that you should help more around the house? And he's like, oh, absolutely. And do you agree that your wife does more work in the house than anybody? For sure. And I'm like, okay, so, man, do you agree that she needs a break more than anyone on earth? Oh, absolutely. And you're like, okay, so we're pretty much with you, Diane. We're with you. We totally get you. We even believe you do more work. But for some odd reason, when they're arguing and fighting and caught up in it, he then has to defend himself because it all started with the fact that she said he didn't care. You must not care. And he's like, where I disagree with her is I care. I know I don't do any work. I know I need to do more. I know she feels like it's not fair. I know she needs a break, and I know she needs it more than anyone on earth. But that's not what we're talking about. I do care. Sometimes when we're trying to deal with people that are different from us, we only see the differences. And in reality, life is not just about a bunch of differences. Sometimes there's so many similarities, and we want to make sure we're looking for the things we have in common instead of trying to always differentiate ourselves, instead of trying to figure out how we're different. Now, by the way, the same is probably true as we're driving our cars in other states, okay? Let's try that piece one more time from Rob Sanders.
Driving is my hobby. A lot of guys grab skis and head up the mountain. I grab my car keys and head down to the freeway. It's just what I do. And driving habits really do vary from place to place, as you've seen as you've traveled around. Take the Pacific Northwest. Some of the most courteous drivers I've ever seen. They gently roll to a stop to let a tumbleweed roll by. If Portland or Seattle had tumbleweeds, which they don't. But that courtesy comes at a heavy price. They are so slow. I don't think a single car in Portland has ever gone above 48 miles per hour. And they have this naive dissatisfaction as they can't figure out how the rest of the country could be so rude out on the roads. Now, around the office talking with everybody, it seems like everyone has a strong opinion about some place they've lived.
Calgary drivers, my experience, are quite courteous. They let you in. They don't drive the speed limit quite like Seattle drivers, I think. Wave a friendly hand when you do something nice for them.
Washington, D.C., if you try and drive sane in D.C., you're going to crash and hurt other people because you're not insane. It doesn't work that way. Going from one end of the road to the other and then back again, just crossing as many lanes of traffic as possible for no real good reason.
Texas drivers are very kind and polite, yet they drive very big vehicles. It's kind of intimidating when you're driving a small car.
I love to visit California because I really think they're actually some of the country's best drivers. They flow better, they drive nice and fast, traffic permitting. Sure, at 5 o'clock, LA is a parking lot, but at 8 p.m., it's a racetrack. It's kind of the survival of the fittest thing, and all the bad drivers got priced out because their insurance went too high. Though I do admit for them, stop signs are effectively yield signs, and they have this California cut thing where they'll be in the fast lane and go, oh, there's my off-ramp, and they'll cut across 3 lanes to get off.
When you're driving around in Kansas City, you'll see the Missouri license plates, and you just get mad. You know, they're going to cut you off or something. Kind of a prejudice. Most of the time, people drive fast in Kansas. They'll stay to the left side, and they'll cruise. But the Missouri drivers have a tendency to drive their trucks and sit in the left lane doing 70 when everybody wants to be doing 70.
Driving through downtown Chicago and just trying to get on the interstate, and it was, completely like bumper to bumper, and we kept putting our blinker on, and like as we would like start to get an opening, like a car would speed ahead, and like we just couldn't get on.
In Albuquerque, I thought the drivers were actually pretty good, except like Arizonans, they seem to like to randomly just pop out in front of you when you're going 45 miles an hour, and you have to kind of swerve around it. But they don't get the freeway. It's just like a big road to them. Now, if your travel plans involve flying over water, the drivers get even worse.
Paris, France.
And I looked out the hotel window, and Paris has no signs, lights, arrows, nothing. No rhyme or reason, cutting in front of each other. It's just this mass of cars, and no one was crashing. It's just amazing.
There's this thing, it's called the Puerto Rican creep. Any situation when you're driving, they'll just creep on over, and they'll just force, even if there's not any room in between you and the car in front of you, there was power outage. All the electricity had gone out, and the middle of the intersection was like a giant jigsaw puzzle.
Everyone thinks the drivers from where they live are the worst in the country. I daily think Utah drivers are some of the worst, but even our drivers can't match my friend's description of a Boston commute. Bumper to bumper at 80 miles an hour. Don't have a single gap or somebody will slide in and take it. But yeah, I think a driver on the West Coast is probably a bit more chilled out than somebody with the intensity of an East Coast commute. But I think we all can kind of rest easy knowing that your city's drivers really aren't more terrible than everywhere else. They're just different in how they're terrible.
What a positive way of looking at it, Rob. It's not that they're worse than you. It's just that they're worse in a different way. That is it. Differences. We've all got them. Every state, every city, every town. Think about it. East side, west side of cities, we get divided. But when it comes down to humanity, we're all the same. We're going to take a break here on the Matt Townsend Show. When we come back, we're going to bring on Eric Dowdle, the folk artist, the master traveler, and he's gonna give us insight, ideas in what is so universal about the human race. That's next up on the Matt Townsend Show on Sirius XM 143 BYU Radio.
Well, East Coast girls are hip. I really dig those styles they wear. And the Southern
Welcome back, everybody, to the Matt Townsend Show. Little Beach Boys. Now, nothing creates the sense of just Americana than the Beach Boys, except the artwork of Eric Dowdle. Now, if you have not seen his artwork, you're missing out. He paints by the numbers, which is seriously amazing. And he's joining us today. Eric Dowdle from Dowdle Folk Art. He really does get what America, hometown world feels like. Eric Dowdle, welcome to the show.
Well, Matt, thank you for having me. You're way too kind. I can't hear myself. I don't know if you can hear me.
Turn up your little knobby knob.
All right, that's what we need.
There
there
go.
I am.
So there you are.
You're really nice.
No, what's funny, Eric, is you have a radio show and you didn't know how to turn up your headset.
Well, they hold my hand all the way through the show. You're a pro, brother.
I'm just telling you. They let me turn my own little knobby knob there.
Hey, well, what a fun topic you have today.
Yes, so check this out. We had John. Eric might be thinking, well, why? I mean, Eric has a travel show on BYU Radio. It's a travel, but it's more than travel because you travel the world and then you actually will go to a town and paint the town.
Yeah, so my job is to get in, go and meet the people, do what a tourist would do, just get under the sidewalk and find out what makes that place tick.
That's cool.
So with the concept of what you're talking about, I really have to figure that out. Because if I get home and I miss it and I paint Boston or Hong Kong and I don't capture the people or the flavor,
the spirit of it.
Yeah, the emails come in. They're like, "That's not Hong Kong."
Well, it's interesting. So you're not painting objects. You're painting a feel.
Yeah, some people have asked me before, "What is folk art?" And I go, "I guess folk art is people and their relationships with their environment, which makes all of us." We're all a part of a folk art painting, if you will. I mean, we are the flavor of wherever you live. Mm-hmm. If you're in Alaska, there's a flavor. We talked about this a couple weeks on our show where every place has a unique twist that makes it similar yet different.
Right.
And I love the topic because when I go in, I go, wow, they're not much different than us. But wow, in this area, big difference.
Are.
For example, the driving part that you were talking about, I went from Boston to Texas. I moved there.
They all drive the same cars.
Yeah, well, the last 5 through a red light in Boston are totally legal. And my first week in Texas, and there's such a different mentality.
Yeah.
They're not in a hurry in Texas. And this guy in front of me while I'm driving down the road, between two cities, we're going pretty quick. All of a sudden, he just pulls off the road. And I'm like, something must be wrong with his car.
Yeah, he's having a breakdown.
And I'm trying to do a good deed. So I pull up behind him, and I get out, and I walk up to his window, and I go, "Sir, are you okay? Is your car all right?" And he goes, "No, you look like you were in a hurry. So why don't you just get on by?" And I'm like,
what a nice man.
Are you kidding me? You pulled off the road so I could get by.
And you had all these people hating you in Boston, probably.
Yeah, and that's the South. And now if that guy did that in Boston,
he'd get shot.
Yeah, and we don't want to just, but they're just a little more aggressive. It's not wrong or it's not right. It's just different.
Isn't that, my worst, and I didn't even think of that. I should have known that because I got a rental car. And I'm used to driving like a bigger car, like a Suburban. We have a big family. So I'm in Boston, and they say, do you want a bigger car? No, an Expedition.
Oh, okay.
A Ford Expedition. And I'm like, well, sure, let's get an Expedition. How hard could that be in Boston?
Oh, my.
Horrible.
Well, the roads there are
horrible.
Half as thick as they are here.
I know. It's not the same.
Yeah, you're a road hog.
So what do you notice? Okay, so that's kind of the east, northeast, and the south. What do you notice with the west?
We're kind of we're the teenagers of the country.
We're the free spirits.
The East Coast looks at us and goes, well, they're young.
Yeah.
They're growing up out west. So they're kind of spreading their wings. They're inventing new things. They're coming up with trends. And if you watch the trends, they all come out of California in that
those
area.
Crazy California.
Yeah, and then they spread west. So we're very immature in their eyes. But in some areas, it's really interesting. When I moved from Boston again, after I finished my time in Texas, I went back to Boston.
What was that? It was prison, right?
Yeah,
you served some time.
And there's a statute of limitations. I'll get back someday.
Yeah. They'll expunge your record.
So I came back here, and we noticed something really quick. And how open, how creative we are in the West. And let me explain. I mean, if you had, if you were eating lunch in Boston and you spilt something on your shirt, all your buddies would kind of look at each other and go, "I'm so embarrassed for Matt. He doesn't know how to eat."
Yeah, what a pig.
Well, yeah, that's embarrassing. Here, your buddy will go, "Hey, you got stuff all over you. What are you doing?" And they'll help you out. They're really we're much more creative. When we ask somebody out to a date, we get a plunger, we stick it on the door, and it has a note that says, "Hey, take the plunge with me this Saturday, and let's go to the prom or whatever." Yeah. In the East Coast, they just go, "Hey, what are you doing Saturday?"
So do you want to go or don't you?
Yeah. It's so.
Isn't that
the way we approach things in the West, from what I've gathered in that arena, big difference. And
Midwest, what do you see there?
Boy, that's just like there's a reason why when you watch the evening news, they talk like the Midwest, because that's the middle of everything.
Yeah.
They've got a little bit of the South there, they got a little bit of the East, a little bit of the West, and so that's our heartland.
Yeah.
So it's conservative, it's simple, it's you do your thing, I'll do my thing. If you need some help, I'm there. But for the most part, don't give me too much of a rough time.
Yeah.
It's a great mix of the entire country. Right.
Where's your favorite? So you've painted. Just give us a rundown of a bunch of the. Let's go America first. Where have you sat and painted? The neat thing then too, it's people can get, if you've gone to New Orleans and painted something, they can actually go to your website and see that painting and find that painting. But where have you gone? Give us the list.
Oh, the list it's vast, but I'll give you a couple of my favorites and some that really stand out because of how different they were and yet how similar.
Cool.
New Orleans, you mentioned that one. It's a great the history of New Orleans will give you a greater understanding of why it is what it is. And yes, it gets a reputation for being seedy. It's kind of Vegas-ish. Yeah. But if you go out, and this is how it is in every town, you can find the pony amongst the manure if you look, okay? And Vegas is that way, and New Orleans that way. But New Orleans, it's such a flavor, and there's a few things you look for when you go into a town. You find out their history, and New Orleans, for example, pirates helped establish.
I know that starts it right there.
French prisoners were brought over. They had a choice between prison or go to New Orleans. And
voodoo.
So, you bring those two things together, you're already off on a bad. I mean, then you go up to Boston.
A creative bent.
Then you go up to Boston. It's the Puritans.
That's
all right,
right.
They're Puritans and prisoners, both starting
paradox.
a city. Yeah. So now here we are, 200 years later. It still has a flavor that's totally different than any other place, but unique, and yet at the same time progress to the point where you can hear the history, you can participate on whatever level you want, and you can keep it G, PG, PG-13 or whatever. But that's what I loved about New Orleans. Underrated.
Beads or no beads?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I went no beads time. And
oh, boy.
So
that's probably healthier.
It was pretty. I went and chased alligators. It was cool.
That's great.
But New Orleans was one.
New Orleans, where else?
One of my favorites. Anything up in the New England area, it's so patriotic. It's got a patriotic underpinning, yet they're very, depending on your political views, some may say, oh, they're too liberal for me, or they're way conservative. But no matter how you slice it, my favorite thing about New England is you can have a political conversation out there, and every home has an American flag. You go to the West or the Midwest, and there's not an American flag. But because of all the history there.
Yeah, kind of the,
Yeah, it's
the home. It's more. In fact, that seems like that is your artwork right there.
Yeah. Well,
but then all of a sudden, honestly, though, I could see it in New Orleans.
Yeah,
I can see it's. I guess it's just America.
Yeah, you want to chase down the history. You want to see what the food is like, because that has a big part of their culture.
I was just thinking, how do you not just love the food part?
It depends. You get to some places, like when we did. I went to Quebec City.
Wow.
And
okay, but
it's France.
So isn't that like New York?
Well, kind of, but French, Canadian.
I guess Paris.
Yeah, sure. And you got to eat great food in Quebec. And by the way, one of the most beautiful cities in North America. If you ever got a chance, especially if it's a romantic moment,
really
go to Quebec. Take your wife to Quebec. I guarantee you, man, that she will love it. She will love it.
See the sights.
But it was escargot that I had to eat while there, and that was the first introduction to the.
Well, you didn't have to. I'm sure they have a KFC.
I wanted to feel like. The waitress looked at me like, "You Americans, what are you going to eat? You Americans?" And then
I'll have the snails.
Yeah, but so I realized at that point, if you dip something in butter and garlic, you can eat your shoe.
Ranch dressing.
Absolutely.
Escargot with ranch, good stuff.
But the history of that area,
profound.
Great. I mean, and this is just in North America. some of my other favorite cities. Seattle, beautiful. On a sunny day, Seattle, one of the most beautiful
Hands down.
cities in the world.
So that's like 2 days a year, right?
Yeah, no, five.
Is it five?
Last year, it was an all-time high.
But well, you're noticing in all of these places similarities, same people,
Right.
but they just talk different.
They do. They talk different.
They drive
and then, like I said, when you start talking about the history or how old a city is, one town, or like I said, the West is a little bit more free-flowing.
Well, Midwest, kind of founded by the Mormons, the kind of the
Right.
pioneer thing.
Yeah, but we are definitely...
Miners in the West.
We are more creative. I will tell you that. There is a creative flow
It's
on
just
this side of the
desperate.
Mississippi.
We were desperate to survive.
Yeah. They're like, what are we going to eat tonight? I don't know. Think. We're going to
That's right.
die. So,
Tacos.
Yeah.
Something good.
Yeah.
It's
That's just America.
interesting. That is foreign. Go foreign. What are your favorite foreign cities?
Well, I've spent some time in Africa, Kenya. I have a great story. It probably might
we'll
take
come
too
back.
long.
We'll come back after
But
that on that one.
China is fantastic because
Beautiful.
I did leave this out on the underpinnings of a town. You've got the history, but you want to know their religious background because that'll determine a lot of how they think and what they think.
Values
and so forth. Yeah. And then anything in Europe from an architectural standpoint. But then as time has evolved, you can see how their mentality with different forms of government, how they look at things, and then more importantly, how they view you.
Life. Oh, you as an American or just you as another human?
Yeah, and then as you talk, I love this about what you said, you'll pretty soon find there's one thing that's always common, and that obviously is the relationship with their families. You go that with any country, and you'll find that that's the underpinning of us all.
Yeah.
And the love that they have in that area. And so it doesn't matter what you're eating, politics, religion, family. They all love it. And if you can go there with anybody, especially when you meet a celebrity, you'll have a friend.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Look at you.
I'm not allowed to talk at home, so you've just opened the floodgates.
Well, it's almost like, you're a whole different guy when we let you talk.
Yeah, I know. My kids, they get this blank stare on their face, and I'm going,
Dad's like communicating.
Yeah, please eat, Dad. Stop talking.
Well, I think you got it, Eric. And we're going to come back. When we come back from the break, I really want to hear just some of your favorite humans you've met, the favorite people, a few of the stories, just a little bit of the quirky nature, and a lot. I want to hear the Kenya story if you can get it in time.
I will do my best.
You're so good. We're talking to Eric Dowdle, and apparently that little chime you heard there means we're done for this break. We're going to go take a break. We'll be back, and when we come back, we're going to get in deep in understanding all of us, the diversity across America. Thanks for listening to the Matt Townsend Show on Sirius XM 143 BYU Radio.
On the road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again. Life I love is making music with my friends. I can't wait to get on the road again.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Matt Townsend Show and Willie Nelson. Oh, that song, that's Americana right there. You like it?
I'm digging it.
We're back with Eric Dowdle, folk artist, but really a host on BYU Radio, and we wanted to have Eric in because he has, I think it's it's a unique gift where Eric goes to a town. A lot of times they brought him in because they want to, have a commemorative, painting, and they bring you in. You go meet everyone in town, basically.
To the point where they're like, hey, is this guy leaving?
Is he ever going to go? When's he going to make the painting?
Right.
And then he paints it, but you get to know a lot of people. So I wanted to bring you in and basically talk about people. You've seen them all over, in every culture, all over the country. We're all so different and diverse, and we're so many people fighting for diversity, and we all want to be so unique and so different, and yet there's so much we're similar on.
Yeah, we refer to ourselves as the melting pot here.
Right.
And it's interesting because that's what makes America unique. Yet up north, Canada, for example, they celebrate diversity differently to the point where they don't melt up there. I call it a stew.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be Chinese in Canada, great.
Yeah.
They're not going to make you become.
Own it.
Yeah.
That's right.
So everybody's very. We're
more like a puree.
Yeah, and we're less melting than we used to. But
true.
I mean, you came here and you.
Well, I guess you want to retain, and that's what you're kind of talking about. We want to retain the qualities, celebrate
Right.
what we share in common.
Yeah.
And and maintain the differences.
Yeah, any country would want to say this. They would want to say, "Hey, bring all your good.
Yeah.
See if we can add to it."
That's great.
And as I've traveled, I'll find some of that in these different places with some of these people. I mean, we couldn't be more different.
Yeah.
And one of the things, and you asked me about some unique people. Before you go somewhere, you may think you've got it down, and then you get there and you're completely caught off guard. And I'll give you an example. And sometimes I go out of town for business to do research or to manufacture, but when we went to Africa, we were doing some charity work along with some manufacturing, and through some circumstance, we sat down with the president of Kenya.
Wow.
And we knew we were going to be doing that right as soon as we got there. So we thought, what do we give the president? You know, the cameras are going to be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be exciting.
You got to give him something.
Yeah. So we went to a guy in Bountiful, Utah, who cuts out wood and jigsaw puzzles. And we're thinking, what's the most universal? So we thought of Noah's Ark. Yeah, he liked Noah's Ark. So we spent $3,000 on this wooden jigsaw puzzle, and I'm telling you, it was stunning. It was so awesome. I carried it on the plane. I did not want it to get messed up. So in our minds, we're thinking, Kenya, they will love this puzzle. The president, we knew he had 3 kids. And so there we are in front of the cameras. We put it out on the table. I pull off the cover and unveil it, and ta-da! And he's like, oh, my goodness, your painting has broken. And I'm like, No, it's a puzzle. He's like, no, I will talk to customs. This is not acceptable. I'm like, no, see, in America, we take our art and we cut it up into pieces and we put it back together.
He couldn't fathom
And he was
it.
just looking at me like, what an incredible waste of time.
Why would you waste your painting?
Yeah, so here
sad.
I'm thinking, a puzzle. Of course they know puzzles. He had never seen a puzzle his entire life. So, we're kind of stuck there going, and he went into his cabinet and got us a Tusk clock that was made in China, and I thought, man, we blew that one.
That's funny.
But what was interesting is we thought was technologically slow or something.
Yeah.
They just economically hadn't found the value or time.
Why would you do that?
Puzzle's something you do in leisure.
Yeah.
And in Africa, these people are working
There's no
all the
leisure
time.
We're trying to stay alive.
And I didn't even put that together. And
Isn't that interesting?
then we went from there and we went out to the villages there and went to the schools. And by the way, oh my goodness, you want to send your kids to Kenyan schools. Because I walk into the room, these kids stand up and they're like, good afternoon, Mr. Dowdle. And we're like, these kids are so respectful. And the teacher's like, well, aren't they respectful in America? I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
we're all over that. Mr. Dowdle's what I get called.
Yeah, I got called that last year.
Well, so we gave all these kids puzzles, and it was so interesting to see their minds at work on something that we take for granted.
Oh, isn't that amazing?
And I tell that story just because it just shows how after a while they saw and they were having a good time, but similar but different.
Yeah.
Things we take for granted, and I also came to the conclusion it might be better to be the second person to introduce something into a country.
The next puzzle into
the next
Kenya
guy is going to
rock.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to know what that's about.
So the time in
classic.
Africa to watch the people, again, back to the similarities, their love for family is off the charts.
Yeah.
It's what we are and that we strive to be. And what was funny is at the same time, because of our technology, they wanted us. They wanted something that we have. And with us, with technology and everything that's progressed like it is, we come across we are stressed.
Yeah, totally.
We are so
stressed cases.
And so I felt like we were sitting there with them as they were trying to implement some of our programs into their. I'm like, hey, if you stick with us, you could be just as stressed out as us.
Give me years and I will stress you out.
And we all left going, we want to be more like them, and they're wanting to be more like us.
Okay, so there's a universal. We all think everyone else has something better.
Yeah.
And yet, what we have is fairly adequate.
Yeah, truly.
If not exceptional.
These kids were going out of their minds to get a piece of candy, all right? And we're looking at them like, well, it's good and everything, but you will get sick and die.
Yeah. Have you heard of the American obesity crisis?
Yeah, and there was not an overweight Kenyan that I
know.
none.
I bet you didn't
Zero.
see any.
Well,
and now you've got them doing puzzles, so now they're going to start vegging.
Yeah,
and
we found that same.
Eric.
Well, that was our goal, to destroy society.
Slowly take Kenya down.
We found that same thing in China, though.
Did you?
They're all very skinny, and they look at a larger American, and that's awesome to them.
Well, look at that.
Oh, they're like I took
time.
my brother over there, and I hope he's listening. He's a rather large mammal.
Yeah.
And we'd walk down the street. Now we're the only white people in Shenzhen where we were doing our manufacturing. So that alone attracted attention.
You're not just white, you're big and white.
Yeah, and so he's big. We look like the number 10 walking down the street, and they're like, they would say stuff like, "Oh, those Americans have so much money, they must eat all day." And so we got to know their background a little bit.
Totally, dude.
It was so. You got to go to a place where you're the only guy.
That's right.
Only person.
You want to see? So you're standing out. So you're being the minority. There was the big white guy.
And here, if I were to move, I would love to be a different ethnic or something background, religious background, and move to like Utah.
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't it be great? Now, I lived in Boston as an LDS, and I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed that more than being LDS here because my neighbor's LDS. Everybody's LDS.
LDS in Utah is
sling a dead cat, you're going to hit one. So out in Boston, we were unique. I mean, at high school, people like, hey, rub the Lucky Mormon on the head before the basketball game. I'm like, I'm a luck charm. What's going on? But we were so different, and yet it was what
you want to be different. I mean, and I guess that's what we all fight for, is to be different, and then we overlook where we're all so alike. And so tell me about some Americans you've met. I know you, because I know when you do your art, you'll go meet somebody, and then you'll actually paint them into the scene you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, think about your favorite place. What's your favorite place, for example, Matt? Oh, you got so many.
Well, Vegas. No, I love Lake Powell.
Okay, that's a great example. Lake Powell, and my kids love Lake Powell, and they like it. Why? Because your cell phone doesn't work. They've got Matt.
Yeah,
they've got all of you. And so,
or are those the Red Rocks, the Orange Mountains there,
and you're truly at peace. And so, because of that, you make a memory there that's very strong, and there's such an attachment. There's a personal. It moves the meter.
Yeah, totally.
And those are the places I need to paint.
Move the meter.
Yeah, and so you want to be a part of that. And so we have something where people can actually become a part of the painting. And we've done that where, and I've had some great. We did some painting for Steve Young's foundation, and which is great because they were like this big firewall, not going to let me meet Steve Young.
You are not getting to Steve.
But I spent enough time with him where it was great. I mean, think about his celebrity status. All right, after you got through the celebrity status, and I tell this to anybody who wants to have a conversation with a celebrity, talk about their kids, their wife, their family.
Every time.
And as soon as I started talking to Steve about his kids, it was a perfect, we were equals. We were equals. We were both raising kids.
Parents.
We're in the throw of it all. And then, if we wanted to talk about something else, it happened. But that's where their passion was.
That's amazing.
But Lake Powell, I was doing that painting, put Steve in it. You got some emotion around it. And we want to make them a part of the city. It just makes more of attraction.
That's an interesting. So you're sitting here, of everything that's most universal, it's family.
I would.
That's
say.
like if you had to. I mean, other than the fact that we have two eyes and we're breathing and we have respiratory systems, but it's family.
Yeah, I'd say in my conversation in China where I was working with my. This is back when we manufactured. We now do it all in America, but. I was talking to the manager, and now 20 years ago, 15 years ago, you couldn't have a religious conversation.
Right.
But we started going down that road, and I just asked him, so what do you think happens? And I knew this guy had a family. I knew he loved his family and everything. But I said, what happens when you die according to your religious background? He goes, no, when you die, it's all over. And I'm going, well, try this out. There's a body, there's a soul, spirit. Yeah. They come together to make the soul. Yeah. The body dies, the spirit lives on forever, and you continue to grow. What do you think of that? And the wife of the manager goes, oh, that sounds so wonderful. Give life much more purpose, more meaning. And the manager, the guy goes, nah, you die, it's all over.
You die.
Yeah. But as we talked more about that, it didn't matter whether your concept was life after death or not. They both, the husband and wife, the family.
Yeah.
They only get one child over there, so that one child was everything, and with or without religion.
Yeah.
That was it was something we had in common.
Huge.
So.
Eric Dowdle.
There's so many great places though, with so many different flavors.
Give me one more. I've got to go to one place. Fast.
Good heavens, Amsterdam.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, Amsterdam. It's a very socialized nation, so they have a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
Yet again,
family.
Just trying to make a living, and boy, does every place love their food. And by the way, if you want a good waffle.
Where do you go?
Man, go
Waffle
to
House.
Yeah.
In Louisiana.
Yeah, that's right. Or any street on any cart in Amsterdam. And Amsterdam, again, that's like New Orleans. You can find what you want to find.
That's right.
What a great place to visit.
Have you heard of Eggos?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Who
them is good waffles. That's awesome.
Oh, they look at us in that arena.
I know. They must think
they just go, what are you guys doing?
And it's the same thing with our chocolate. I mean, we're lowbrow.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Eric Dowdle. No, Eric, they can find you, Dowdle Folk Art.
DowdleFolkArt.com, just like that.
Okay,
So-
my friend, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, you have a great show. And
do
all
too.
you out there, now you get this persona of Matt on the radio. Off air, same guy. Really, very cool. Very cool.
Same crazy
Yeah,
dude.
he's as unstable off air as he is
Oh,
on.
you have no idea. And they can hear you every night, apparently, on BYU Radio.
I guess
every single night.
7 o'clock, and I apologize.
10
and,
o'clock, 9 o'clock Eastern time.
Yeah, that's sign language. Way to go. Our
That's
producers
good.
are so sharp.
You'd actually think you'd know the time of your show, Eric, which
Yeah.
is ironic you don't.
Yeah, that's true.
Thanks again, my friend.
Thanks, Matt.
Appreciate you. And we're going to come back right after this to the Matt Townsend Show on Sirius XM 143, BYU Radio. Welcome back, everybody, to the Matt Townsend Show. Just had Eric Dowdle with us, folk artist extraordinaire, storyteller. He is quite the storyteller, and that's just the stories. You only heard the ones on air. I mean, there's more to it. But you can get more of Eric Dowdle, again, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, on BYU Radio, Sirius XM 143. Eric does a travel show when he brings in guests from the area, the locations he's gone to, and they just kind of talk about the different parts of the world and the country. And you don't want to miss that. Now, also, if you want more information about Eric and his artwork, you can go check some of that out at Dowdle, DOWDLE, folk art, FOLKART.com. DowdleFolkArt.com. Now, I really just love this idea of how I think we all fight to be so different. I think we want to stand out. We think the flavor we bring to the world is this flavor of eccentricity and difference. And sometimes that's true and powerful. And yet we also have to mix, right? I mean, we also have to integrate. And I love the idea that we fight for our diversity, and we also need to fight for where we integrate. And I think there's incredible power there, especially when we kind of are really clear about who we are. So, be thinking about that. Thinking about yourself. Are you somebody that integrates well? Are you somebody that really that understands it? And or you come in with prejudice and bias and you just only see the difference. To me, there's incredible value in seeing everything. Let's go now to this concept of if you had to move to another place of the world, it's a hard thing, right? Anywhere in the world, even if it's to a country that seems pretty similar to your own home. Here's Corinne Collins talking about what it was like to leave England and to come to Utah.
As you can tell, I'm not from around here. And even though I've lived in America for almost 6 years, there are a lot of things I'm still adjusting to. 6 years ago, an 18-year-old me left England and tried Mexican food for the first time. I'd never had a Slurpee, or eaten cornbread, or driven in a car for more than 6 hours. In England, we don't have soda fountains, or more than 3 fast food restaurants, or s'mores. There were clearly a lot of adjustments to be made. But some of you might think that moving abroad is just like a long vacation. You go and sample the local cuisine, learn some new vocabulary words, and ultimately get a taste of something different from home. But moving away isn't really like that. I cannot count the times that I've almost been hit by cars because I looked the wrong way when I crossed the street, or how difficult it was to learn all the different road traffic rules, or even to speak in an accent that could be understood by, well, anyone. I was 18 years old, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, experiencing this new world and new life. But it was different to know that I could be experiencing it for, well, potentially forever, and on my own. Cultural differences become incredibly important when you move across the world. And while England and the US are not so distant cousins, there are definitely enough differences to make communication hard. So I still feel silly when I have to ask what Twinkies are. Okay, I'm joking, I do know what Twinkies are. But I still forget to call the bonnet the hood, or the boot the trunk, or the pavement the sidewalk. Candy will forever be sweets in my vocabulary, and I'm not sure I'll ever be able to call trousers pants, or a jumper a sweater. And I'll get asked where I'm from every time I go to the grocery store, or to do an American accent by all of my co-workers. But that's alright, because I'm immersing myself in a different and new culture, and this is an opportunity for me to grow in all aspects of myself. So, in short, I might be a great British weirdo, but I'm also becoming an American one.
Good stuff. Corinne Collins, you're not just a great British weirdo, you are our British weirdo, which is even better, Corinne. Love that one. Love that segment. A lot of the words she said, I didn't even understand what she was saying. Like, what's a sloipy? Is that what she said? Good stuff. See, diversity. It adds so much flavor. It adds so much life. And we all have so many problems with it. Just the stuff that's going on in the world, some of the legal cases going on in the United States, and it's gone on. Rodney King, O.J. Simpson, all of these things that tend to tear us apart, they don't have to. There is so much good going on in America. There's so much good going on everywhere. And I don't want to just be Pollyanna-ish, but quite honestly, where else would you rather be? Apparently, we could go to, Kenya. We could go to Norway. We could go to Alaska. We can go to Great Britain. And yet, when we get there, we're just going to run into a bunch of people who are just like us, trying to basically do what we do, and who have fears, who have insecurities, who have doubts, that feel alone. Remember, that which is most personal is most universal. And I think as we look at our lives and we look at the people around us, especially the people in your family, there is so much more we have in common. I work a lot when I'm teaching conflict resolution to try to teach people to look for what the similarities, look for the things we have in common. Usually I found when we're trying to work with somebody and create common ground, we have to look for common ground and find it and point it out. We all basically need sleep, right? We all need food and water. We all need to be loved and cared for. We need to be touched. We need to be appreciated. We need to feel safety. We need to feel trust. And again, it's ours to give. It's ours to take. So honestly, are we really that different? And there's some great quotes that we came up with that I just wanted to run through a few of them. Here's one by Israel Zangwill that says, "America is God's crucible, the great melting pot where all the races of Europe are melting and reforming. The real American has not yet arrived. He is only in the crucible. I tell you, he will be the fusion of all races." Another one, "America is great because it has as much diversity in geographies as it does in peoples. America is it." That was Aurora Rain. Gerald Stanley Lee said, "America is a tune. It must be sung together." Val Sainsbury, another great quote, says, "My favorite thing about the United States, lots of Americans, one America." Where do we unite? Where are we one? Can you think about it? Where are you one with the people in your world? I remember after 9/11, we felt like we were one. I remember being stuck at the LAX Marriott, teaching a workshop. All the airplanes that were flying from New York that were involved on 9/11 were on their way to LA. And, then we had the tragic 9/11 problems. And when that went down, we turned into one nation for a while. And I remember being stuck in LA, needing to get back to Utah. And I remember getting on a bus, actually had to take all my equipment, all my PowerPoint stuff, my computers, my projectors, and get on a Greyhound bus with a bunch of people I had never seen in my life, in a way, not really wanting to ever see them, I thought. And we drove, all the way to Salt Lake City, stopping neatly in every city and town along the way. And with every stop, the bus would stop. The driver would say, Bakersfield, California, smoke 'em if you got 'em. And everyone would get off and go have their smoke. And we would all just sit there. And we, one by one, city by city, town by town, we fought our way back after this trauma of 9/11. I remember getting home, being so excited to be with my family, And then hearing the stories of how my family, what they were feeling going through 9/11, and remembering that those were the same stories I was hearing being told while I was in L.A. So we don't have to have a collapse of our government or our towers or our people. We don't have to have a terrorist act to bring us together. I think, as was so perfectly brought up by Eric Dowdle, maybe what we need to do is just make sure we all remember what matters most, which is our families, our friends, our loved ones, our freedoms, and just understand that we're all there. We all are at least united in that. Now, we may be different in how we want to exercise our freedoms. We may be on different pages in what we think is what it constitutes to be free, what it constitutes to what rights you should have, who should be able to marry, who shouldn't, all of these things. Okay, let us be different, and let us always celebrate where we're together. I personally believe just the mere fact that we have a little bit of divinity inside of each of us, that's pretty much all you need to know. Emerson called it the divine spark. We've all got it. We all possess it. It's hard to hurt somebody else if you recognize that inside of them there's a little divine spark, right? Inside of the president of Kenya and his 3 children, there's a divine spark. Inside of Eric Dowdle, a divine spark that makes it out. In fact, he basically alluded to the fact that we have to go looking for this spirit of the people. We don't just draw who they are. Inside of each of us, there's something very special. And I promise you, as you are trying to get through this crazy life, if you'll just focus a little bit more on the deeper meanings, like Eric brought up, your families, maybe this divine spark, maybe just the fact that you're really lucky to have what you have. Count your blessings. I'm going to challenge you. Today's challenge is to go home, hug the people that are close to you, and thank your God above that you have a chance every single day to be alive and to enjoy more of this crazy thing we call life. Hang on out there. Make sure you're watching out after each other, and join us every afternoon, 5 o'clock Eastern Time, for more of the Matt Townsend Show, where we're going to help you get through this thing one way or another. Appreciate you all joining us. We'll be back tomorrow with more of the Matt Townsend Show on Sirius XM 143 BYU Radio.